Welcome back to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, it's one of my favorite weeks covering USC. It's USC versus Notre Dame in South Bend. I'm excited for this preview today.
Yeah, these are the type of games that you dream about playing in when you're a kid growing up and playing football and wanting to go to the college level. This is everything that you want in college football. You've got two great programs. You've got a rivalry matchup. You've got the Shillelagh on the line. You've got Touchdown Jesus. You're going to South Bend, Indiana, which is night and day from Los Angeles, California. It's just the best of both worlds. It's a rivalry that's been going on for a very long time. You're coming off of a big win against Michigan last week. My question is how can this team respond? Because it's easy to have that hangover effect to where you're emotionally and physically and mentally drained after that type of win. Can you get back up and go do it again? And this is going to be a great test for this team. This is something that they've struggled with in the past, traveling across country, and all teams do. You know, it's tough when you go Midwest to the West Coast or West to East, all of those. Normally the team that travels struggles a little bit on the road. So this is going to be a great test for this USC football team. How are they going to respond? What's the leadership like, not only with the coaches, but also on this roster? So it's everything you want and more. I'm excited. I'm fired up. I got the chills just talking about it. I'm going to be glued to the TV on Saturday. I hate that it's not at home, though. I love this matchup in the Coliseum, but what better way to go on the road, to go make a statement, start fast, and then bring the Shillelagh back home where it belongs?
Well, you mentioned travel, and I feel like we always throw out the stat that USC hasn't won in South Bend since 2011, but I wanted to know, like, historically, what does it actually look like? But I'm actually going to quiz you about it because I was surprised.
Okay.
In the 96 years of the rivalry, how many times has USC won in South Bend?
96 years they've been playing?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
So 96 years, half of them are at home, so that's 48. And then I'm going to go 20. I'll go half of that, 24, I think, around that.
Minus 10, 14.
14,
yeah.
Wow.
In the history, that's almost 100 years.
Yeah, and I'm curious, wow, 14. When you put it in that perspective, you got to add some context, though. So only half of them are there, so it's not 14 out of 96. But I'm curious, too, how many times has Notre Dame won at USC? Because I've been on the other side of that to where you have to travel across the country. I mean, we played Boston College. We played Notre Dame multiple times. I mean, you're going to these Midwest, to these East Coast games. It's so tough with your schedule to, you got to go to meetings, practice, all that throughout the week. And then that Friday comes around, Thursday too, sometimes when you leave a day early. But that Thursday, Friday comes around, you've got meetings, walkthrough, practice, food, and then you're on a 4-hour flight across the country, hit the ground, and then you've got to go straight to meetings, eat, sleep, and then you wake up and it's game time. It is so tough. So, and we talk about this on some other shows I do about the NFL. Yeah. The teams that go from east to west with those early morning starts or west to east, it's tough to get going. So that's a huge factor in this football game, but there's no excuses. That can't be an excuse. Let's take that number from 14 to 15. Let's get a win in South Bend. I really believe this is a team that can go out there and get the job done. It's going to be a great matchup, but I'm feeling good about USC this week.
Final point on that. I'm curious to see if this Big Ten schedule, Big Ten travel helps at all, because this used to be the outlier trip for USC. Like,
good point.
You're going across the country. It's going to be a long flight. You're not going like 30 minutes up to Stanford. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I'm curious if it is less of an issue because it's now the norm, if you will. I don't know. We will see probably in hindsight.
Yeah, I think it does help. That's a good point. And we talk about being battle tested. You're learning in real time this last year and a half of how to travel well, how to win on the road, what it takes to get the job done. Those are all learning experiences, although we haven't been great. But hopefully this is the one to where it clicks and we get that win. And then we got to go to Nebraska as well. And we got a couple other road games. Go to Oregon, which isn't quite as far, but we've got to be able to travel well to end this season if we want to be where we want to be at the end of the year.
Alrighty, Cody. Well, I'm excited to dive into the X's and O's with you. Before we do, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. You can also watch the video version of the show on the USC Athletics YouTube channel. You can also ask us a question on our socials. Victory Pod USC is where you can find us. And also, I just want to wish a very happy birthday to producer Emily. It's her birthday.
Yeah.
She hates the attention, but she makes everything work behind the scenes, not only for this show, but basically anything involved with what I do. So thank you, Emily. Happy birthday. We appreciate you very much.
Yeah, and you guys don't see Emily because she's always behind the scenes. We'll try to get her on camera one day.
She would hate it.
Please, in the comments, the work. This show doesn't go if we don't have Emily, and I really mean that.
I don't go.
Yeah, you don't go. I don't go. Everything. She is the mastermind behind all this. Please, in the comments, wish her a happy birthday. She is not liking probably that we're doing this because she's
so
shy,
humble.
and she's very humble. But yeah, happy birthday, Emily. Thank you for everything.
Woo! Alrighty. Well, on that note, let's head into the scouting report. The Notre Dame Irish, Fighting Irish, Cody. What have you seen from them overall?
Yeah, I'm going to start with their head coach. This team is led by Marcus Freeman. This is his 5th season at Notre Dame, but his 4th season as a head coach. And if you remember, he came in as a defensive coordinator under Brian Kelly Brian Kelly ended up leaving to go to LSU at the end of the year, so Freeman coached the bowl game, but now he has or is going into his 4th full year as the head coach. In his first 3 seasons, he's led Notre Dame to 9 wins, 10 wins, and then last year they had a program record 14 wins, which ended in a loss to Ohio State in the national championship game. This year, Notre Dame is off to a 4-2 start. The 4 wins haven't been against signature opponents, but they played well in their 2 losses, so don't let this record fool you. The first game they lost was to Miami, 27-24, and then they lost a heartbreaker at home against Texas A&M, 41-40. So even with that record, that's why they're still ranked 13th in the country too, even though they have 2 losses. This is a good football team, and I promise you they're going to give USC their best shot this Saturday.
And in that sense, the 2 teams that they lost to is now number 2 Miami and number 4 Texas A&M, I believe.
2 good football teams, and those games came down to the wire. So they could very easily be 6-0 right now. They probably should be, because that Texas A&M game was from a drop snap. Miami played well, but it was a game that Notre Dame absolutely could have won.
Alrighty, well, let's take a closer look at Notre Dame's offense. Who's at the helm?
Yeah, this offense is led by coordinator Mike Denbrock. This is actually his 2nd season at Notre Dame, so someone that we are familiar with. On the Victory podcast, we did a full breakdown of Notre Dame's offense last year under Denbrock. He is a very, very experienced coach. He's been coaching since 1986, long before any of us were born, so a lot of knowledge when it comes to calling plays. He's actually had multiple stints at Notre Dame as well. He's been back and forth other programs, but he's been with the Fighting Irish multiple times in his career. Last year, he led a very high-scoring offense at Notre Dame. They finished 10th in scoring offense on the year, but this year they've been off to a good start as well. 21st in total offense, 14th in scoring offense, and they're averaging 40 points per game so far this season. This is by far the most talented offense when it comes to personnel that USC has faced this season.
Wow, okay. Well, obviously you've done your film study, Cody, so break it down. How would you describe this offense?
Yeah, this is a spread offense that prioritizes running the football first. They're about 60-40 run to pass this season, which is similar to what they were a year ago. I went back and read all my notes under Denbrock, and I wanted to see how many similarities there were. You've got new personnel. You got a new quarterback. Riley Leonard's gone. So I wanted to see how similar it was. They are in a sense, but there's also some major differences, and we'll dive into that. But it is still a spread offense that wants to run the football. It's interesting, though, because this year, opposite of last year, they have more success throwing it than they do running it, although they've ran it more times than they have thrown the football with a freshman quarterback as well. So right now they're 50th in the country in rushing offense, and they're 19th in the country in passing offense. Another thing that surprises you with that is they have Jarian Price, who's a good running back, but they also have probably a surefire first-round pick in Jeremiah Love, but they've leaned more on the freshman this year when it comes to their offense. They are going to mix in multiple personnel groupings, so when I say spread offense, that means they're going to be in 11 personnel most of the game, which is 1 tight end, 1 running back, 3 wide receivers. But they will get to some 12 personnel, which is 1 running back, 2 tight ends, and 2 wide receivers. They like to use their tight ends both in the run game and in the pass game. You'll see them as well use their tight ends in some of those fullback type formations to where they're offset in the backfield so they can use them in the run game, get downhill and get to that second level, or fake a play or fake the run, let them slide out into the flat like we do with Walker Lyons and Lake McCree, and then find some advantages there. I'm curious this week, though, to see what D'Anton Lynn does against 12 personnel, because these are some big bodies at tight end, but they are a run-first team like Michigan was last week. And remember in that game, Michigan came out in 11 personnel with 3 wides, but we started in base regardless. We had 3 linebackers. We had Jaden Walker out there and then put Kamari Ramsey back to safety. I'm curious if they do the same this week, knowing that this is a run-first team, but the outlier is they've been more successful throwing it, and C.J. Carr has been throwing it all over the field. So something to keep an eye on early in that game. How does D'Anton Lynn come out? And go ahead.
We got a lot of questions about it. They actually were curious, how did you assess Jaden Walker in that role, and do you think Lynn goes with it more?
Yeah, I thought he played good in that game. I really did. I mean, they just, as a unit, you could tell that there was a belief in the scheme and the game plan and everything that D'Anton Lynn and Rob Ryan and Coach Henney and Nua and that entire front 7 as a unit, they had a game plan. They came in. They made Michigan adjust to what they were doing instead of us adjusting to Michigan. And when you do that, you already have the offense on their heels. I would love if we started that game doing the same, or started this game doing the same thing. But if they start throwing the ball over the field with C.J. Carr, you've got to get out of it quickly. You've got to make those in-game adjustments. But I'm fine coming out there and saying, hey, we're not letting Jeremiah Love beat us. We're going to make that freshman quarterback beat us like we did with Michigan. So I'm totally on board if we go in that same look, or you mix it up throughout the game, but that's something to keep an eye on. Another thing that Notre Dame likes to do is they like to get in those pistol formations. And what I mean by pistol formation is that you have a quarterback in shotgun and then you have a running back directly behind them about 2.5 to 3 yards. Why is that important? And why is that difficult for a defense? Because normally when you get in shotgun, you have a running back to your right or to your left. And 95% of the time, if they're on the right, they're running to the left. Or if they're on the left, they're running to the right. This is a tendency breaker. So when you put them in pistol, you give them a two-way go, and the defense can't get a beat on where the ball is going to go. So I like that they do that. That also gives you more of an advantage in play action because now the quarterback can turn their back away from the defense, hide the football. That brings those linebackers downhill a little bit more instead of those ride fakes that aren't really selling anything. It's just more of just to show the action. So got to be ready for that. I expect them with Jeremiah Love to have some of these pistol formations. Like I mentioned, in 12 personnel too, be ready for those tight ends to play at that fullback spot, and they'll just go lead power right at you and see if you can stop it. This is not the same zone read offense from last year. C.J. Carr is not Riley Leonard. He does not have the ability to run the football like Leonard did. Remember last year in that preview, we were very worried not only about Jeremiah Love, but we were worried about Riley Leonard as a runner. C.J. Carr does not have that. He is a pure pocket passer. That's where he makes his money, is sitting back there going through progression and finding some holes in the defense. Be ready for zone read, but a lot of the times he's not even reading anybody. They'll leave that backside in. He's giving it and just doing a fake little, okay, look at me. Hey, I'm not going to pull it. You can't fall asleep on the edge, but I would expect Lynn to have more of a plan to crash down backside and maybe scrape a linebacker or a safety on the backside that you don't need in run support just in case he pulls it. But this is a team that, unlike last year, does not want C.J. Carr running the football a whole lot. They want Price and they want Love, rightfully so, to get the football. Another thing, be ready for trick plays this week. Mike Denbrock on film has already put some together against Texas A&M, and the similarities in that is it's a big-time home game. You're playing against a good opponent, like Riley does a lot when we have those games at the Coliseum. They're going to dial up this week some of those gadget or trick-type plays. Go watch that Texas A&M game. They have a play early in that game. They hand it to the running back. They give a reverse with a fly motion, pitch it back to C.J. Carr in a double reverse, and then he throws it to the tight end down the sideline. I'm not saying that they're going to live in the trick play world, but there's going to be one or two in this game that if we fall asleep could be a crucial point because it could lead to 6 or it could lead to an explosive play to now they're down in the red zone or down by the goal line. So we can't fall asleep with our keys and with our discipline. Expect that too right when they cross the 50. When you get in that, we call it the shot zone, right around that 40 to 50-yard line to where I know I can take a shot over the top. I expect them to break out a trick play. So just be ready for that. And then another thing they like to do on this offense is window dressing. Pre-snap motion, use man or zone tells, put the running back out wide, bring him back in the backfield, start him in the backfield, get to empty, bring a tight end across, bring a receiver across. They do a good job, too, of hitting their motion on the run, meaning they'll have a receiver out wide in a 3-by-1 set. That widest guy will start in motion and then hit it on the run and then run a crossing route or act like he's running a crossing route and break back out, which puts the DB and the defense in a bind. They want to make you try to make adjustments in real time right before the ball snapped. Instead of, okay, motioning down, he gets set, make our calls, and then they go. They're hitting motions on the fly. They're snapping the ball on the fly. They're trying to put you in a bind on defense. So Denbrock, like I said, a lot of experience, a lot of bag of tricks. He does things very well from a schematical standpoint, so we've got to be ready this week, but I expect Denton Lynn to have this defense ready to go.
Now, you're obviously not in the meeting rooms, but I'm curious if you have some insight into this. When it comes to film study and prep, does USC lean more on what they did? They have film against Denbrock, like you mentioned.
Yeah, last year.
But as you also mentioned, it's not Riley Leonard anymore. So how much is that usable versus you're studying this year and C.J. Carr?
Yeah, that's a great question because when you play a team with the same coordinator, you want to go back and watch, okay, how did they attack us? Because they had a game plan for USC in that game, and some of that is going to be carryover this year. But like you mentioned, you have two quarterbacks that are completely different in their play style. You watch some of it, more so in the run game, I would say, when it came to how did they, use their offensive line with the combo blocking and which way did they run the football? Did they want to get Jeremiah Love more on the outside? Were they in between the tackles? You can do that. The zone read, you've got to kind of put up to the side. You don't want to focus too much on that with C.J. Carr. But when it comes to throwing, I think C.J. Carr is a better passer than Riley Leonard, so I would expect the passing concepts to change a little bit this year. He pushes the ball down the field a little bit more. He's a pass-first guy instead of a run-first guy. So 50-50, watch it, but know in the back of your mind you're not playing a Denbrock offense led by Riley Leonard. You're playing a Denbrock offense led by C.J. Carr, but that's the whole cat and mouse game, right? Do we go back? And I promise you the same thing with Notre Dame. Their offense is going back, watching our defense last year. How do we play them? But they also know, okay, they're not going to play Riley Leonard the same way that they played C.J. Carr. So it is a chess match. That's why in these games, when you have great coordinators, when you have great coaches, in-game adjustments. You hear me say it all the time. In-game adjustments are so important. That first drive or two, I'm going to learn what your plan is for the day, and you're going to learn what our plan is for the day, and who can make the best adjustments. It's so much fun. This is going to be one of those games. And before we move on, two more things about the offense. Before we get to personnel, I got to add, be ready for some Wildcat-type plays in short yardage and goal line situation. For those of you who don't know, Wildcat is when the running back lines up at quarterback and they direct snap it to him, and then he runs downhill. So what they're going to do is they'll have C.J. Carr at quarterback. He'll motion out wide, get set to pull a corner, a DB out with them, and then they'll direct snap it to Jeremiah Love on 3rd and 1, on 4th and 1, on goal line situations. They like to get the ball to him directly and then run downhill. They'll use multiple tight end sets with that as well, get their power package in the game. They did it, I think, 3 times against Texas A&M, so be ready for that. I expect that to happen again this game. It's a big part of their offense on their short yardage package. And then another thing, it's not offense, but I have to add it because it happened to us last year.
Okay. Be
ready for fake punts.
Okay.
Remember last year they had a fake punt against us in that game that was a big part of it, where they threw it with their 3rd or 4th string backup quarterback.
Right.
He is still on this team. They did it last week against North Carolina State, to where they line up like they're going to punt it. They shift. Everybody gets to their spot. They put Buckner as his name at quarterback. They snap it to him on 4th and 1, and then they pick up a first down, or 4th and 2. Be ready for fake punts. So I put it on the offensive side because the defense or the return team's going to be out there, I guess. So be ready for that, though. That can't be something that hurts us this game. There's going to be a crucial 4th down where I expect Denbrock or Marcus Freeman to have a trick play on, and it could come from special teams. So you got to be ready on all three phases.
Well, I've been doing these previews with you long enough, Cody, to know that quarterback is probably on your list of key personnel. Take it away.
Yeah, I'm going to start with him. I've already mentioned him a couple times. Quarterback C.J. Carr, 6'3", 210-pound freshman, 1,622 yards this year. He's been fairly accurate with 66% completion percentage, 13 touchdowns, but where he's impressed me the most as a freshman is he's protected the football. Only 3 interceptions so far this season. Like I mentioned, he is a pocket passer. He wants to sit back there, have great protection, go 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, find some of his talented receivers on the outside, and then give Jeremiah Love the ball and let him take care of the run game. It will be interesting this week, though. Like I mentioned, he likes to be comfortable in the pocket, but Notre Dame is missing multiple offensive linemen, so it could be a big opportunity for USC to build off of last week and get some pressure on Carr in the backfield.
Well, I'm going to actually bring up a question about that we got from Rigo. He said, would you approach USC's defensive game plan any differently given that Notre Dame's backup center is starting?
Yeah, that's a great question, and obviously, if we know that and we're talking about it, I promise you the mastermind in the meeting rooms right now, Danton Lynn, knows that as well. So he's coming up with some different things. I expect him this week to add some new looks into the game plan, especially on 3rd down, to force C.J. Carr and their center, the backup center, to have to communicate pre-snap and figure out what's going on, and then he's going to change the look post-snap. But you don't want to do too much. You don't want to overcomplicate it to where you have the defense doing too many different things and now you're giving up plays on the back end. Stay with the things that are working. You can add in a couple different looks that they haven't seen on film yet, so you can create some confusion in the game. But overall, just force them to adjust to us. Play our game, whether it's the starting center, the backup center. Keep getting after them like we did last week. Force this freshman quarterback to be uncomfortable, even at home. And I think we could take advantage of, I hate to see guys hurt, but take advantage of some of these injuries.
Now, I know as football fans in general, we like to just apply the transitive property, and I know football's not copy and paste, but is there anything you can take from USC's approach against Michigan's freshman quarterback and apply it to CJ Carr?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. When you have Danton Lynn, it doesn't matter if it's a freshman or a senior, and I've experienced that before. I hate going against that type of defense, but when you play against Underwood and you saw it worked, and you play against Carr, who's a freshman, I promise you, Danton Lynn's in there like, here we go again. You're giving me freshman quarterbacks back-to-back weeks. I'm ready for it. And they showed a lot to Bryce Underwood in this game. And I promise you, C.J. Carr's in the film room a little extra this week trying to learn what they did against Underwood. That's why I say stick to what works, right? You're not going to change your entire game plan week to week. You're going to stick with some of the things that work. There will be some carryover, but you can also add in some new looks that they haven't seen. So all these things that Carr's preparing for, and that he goes, okay, I see this on the field. I know this is coming. Now add in 2 or 3 more looks to where he has to make adjustments in game. So I love talking about this stuff. If you can't tell, it's so much fun. I flash back to preparing for these type of defenses, for preparing against these rivalry games, because you're going to get their best. It's so much fun to play in, but it's also so much fun to watch on Saturdays.
Oh, I'm excited. You're doing that thing where you get me excited for Saturday, and I'm like,
ready.
It's Wednesday. But I'm assuming since they're 19th in passing offense, they have some weapons on the outside.
Yeah, remember at the top of this episode, I said this offense this team really in general, but specifically the offense, is the most talented offense that USC has faced so far this year when it comes to personnel. A big part of that is the guys they're throwing the football to. Carr's top target is wide receiver Jordan Faison. He has 29 receptions this year, 367 yards and 2 touchdowns. Another guy that USC has to be ready for on the outside is wide receiver Malachi Fields. I expect the Carlos Nicholson, with his size, to follow around Fields in this game, or at least be matched up with him when they go man-to-man, because he is a 6'4", 225-pound senior. He is a threat on the outside, especially with those 50-50 throws and those deep shots down the field, so you want a bigger cornerback like Nicholson on him. The other guy, too, that you have to worry about is Will Pauling. Now, he only has 13 receptions this year, but 3 of them have already been for touchdowns, so he is
efficient.
Yeah, he's efficient. He's that big playmaker for them on the outside. But this next guy that I'm about to talk about is someone that I don't want to say I'm worried about, but I'm curious to see how D'Anton Lynn game plans for him, because USC hasn't faced a legit pass-catching tight end this year that can hurt you through the air, and Notre Dame has a very good one in Eli Reardon. He's 6'7", 250 pounds, and at that size, he's a very good route runner. He's very good going up and high-pointing the football. He can block in the run game. They use him in play action. He's a good football player. He's second on the team in both receptions and receiving yards. He's a threat down in the red zone. I'm just very curious to see how D'Anton Lynn plays against him, not only in zone. Are you going to rotate a safety down to his side? Are you going to try to jam him off the line, not to give him a free release, but also who's going to cover him in man-to-man? I would expect maybe Kamari Ramsey. I know it's a height difference, a matchup nightmare for a defensive coordinator, but I like the physicality that Kamari Ramsey has. Are you going to bring Jaden Walker in on 12 personnel and some of those base looks and play man-to-man with him? Desmond Stevens maybe? Eric Gentry with his size? It's just when you have a guy that's 6'7", there's so many things that you have to worry about when it comes to Notre Dame throwing the football. So that's something to keep an eye on early in this game. I'm sure we'll probably text and be talking about that. But I don't want to bring up the names, but, the Dalton Kincaids.
No, we're good.
The Tyler Warrens, those people, Mayer from last year or a couple of years ago with Notre Dame. So we have struggled in the past with some of these bigger tight ends. It's just a great opportunity to go out and show that we can take him out of the game plan. But I've talked about the receivers. I've talked about the quarterback. Great talent. I'm not even to the most talented part.
But wait, there's more. As good as those guys are on the outside, as good as Carr's been playing, where they separate themselves as an offense when it comes to a talent standpoint is their 2 backs in the backfield. The first one is Jadarian Price. He is their number 2 back. He has 7 rushing touchdowns already this season. I know he's listed as number 2 for Notre Dame. He would be number 1 for probably 95% of other teams in the country. He's that good, but the guy that is my red dot player of the week, a future first-round pick. He is probably the best back right now in college football. Justice Haynes was a guy we talked about last week. Wayman Jordan was in that conversation as well, but I think Jeremiah Love is on top of everybody right now just with how good he is. He's talented as a runner. He's talented out of the backfield as a pass catcher. 6 foot, 215-pound senior, has 100 carries for 530 yards this year, 8 touchdowns. He also has 160 receiving yards and 3 more touchdowns through the air. This is going to be a big opportunity. I know Justice Haynes got hurt last week, but we look good against the run. This is a big opportunity with the depleted offensive line that Notre Dame has to show that you can come out and dominate in the run game and not let Jeremiah Love make it a long night for this defense. This seems like the next step up for USC's defense, or the next test, I should say, because it feels like the prior opponents that USC faced were to some degree one-dimensional, but what you just previewed sounds like there's firepower everywhere you look on this offense.
Yeah, that's a great point. You can't sell out and try to stop the run. You can't just play coverage all game and try to stop the pass. You've got to be great at both of those, and that's a big challenge because you hear me say it all the time. How important is it to be balanced? Balance. I keep saying that word. Your pass game benefits from a good run game. Your run game benefits from a good pass game. Now you get the defense playing more coverage. We'll run the football. Then you come down and load the box. We'll go play action, and you think we're running it, and then we'll throw it over your head. If you can be good at both, that puts stress on D'Anton Lynn. That puts stress on Rob Ryan. That puts stress on Coach Henney, and that puts stress on the players on the field. So, like I said, personnel grouping, yes, they're the most talented team that we've faced so far this year, but they're also the most complete offense as well. So it's going to be a big challenge. I know the numbers are differentiated a little bit, but still top 50 in both. They've been a little better at throwing the ball, but they still can get it done on the ground with these 2 backs. It's going to be a tough challenge for USC's defense, but we said going into that Illinois game, right, we said these next 4, Illinois, Notre Dame, Michigan, Nebraska, those 4 games, we're going to learn a lot about this football team. I think we're going to learn the most in this one.
Alrighty, well, I want to transition over to Notre Dame's defense. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs, progress you can feel. Alrighty, Cody, I don't know too much about Notre Dame's defense. I do know, though, that they have a first-year coordinator.
And that's why you don't know a lot about Notre Dame's defense.
That's
because
fair.
If you remember last year, it was Al Golden.
Yes.
He's now in the NFL, but they brought in a new defensive coordinator. This defense is led by Chris Ash. This is his first season with Notre Dame, like you mentioned. He has a ton of experience both in college and in the NFL, and he also has a ton of experience as a defensive coordinator. He's been a DC at Wisconsin, at Arkansas, at Texas, and he was a co-DC at Ohio State, so he knows how to call a defense. So far this year, Notre Dame is 47th in scoring defense. They're giving up 21 points per game, and they're 60th in total defense. Although Ash does have a lot of experience, and he is a good defensive coordinator who's been around football for a long time, it's tough sometimes in your first year to see that immediately transition onto the field, and there's going to be some growing pains. Notre Dame hasn't been great this year in their secondary. They're 104th in passing defense, but where they have excelled is with their front seven. They're 25th this season in rushing defense.
Now, when you looked at the film, what did you see from them scheme-wise?
Yeah, this is a 4-2-5 defense or a nickel defense that will stay in that personnel grouping for the majority of the game. And when I say 4-2-5 or nickel, that means 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 DBs on the field. So you have 2 corners, 2 safeties, but that 5th DB is that nickel linebacker, like Kamari Ramsey is for USC on the defensive side of the ball. And the reason I expect them to stay in nickel or 4-2-5 the majority of this game is because of the offense that USC has here under Lincoln Riley. A lot of 11 personnel, which is 1 running back, 1 tight end, and then 3 wide receivers or 3 wide. So I expect them to be in that 4-2-5, which is advantageous for USC because that's what we face majority of the times going up against opposing defenses. So we know what play calls work, what don't, how we can attack this both in the run game and in the pass game. Now, when it comes to those 2 linebackers that are on the field, they love to play aggressive and they love to blitz them throughout the game at random moments too. It'll be first down, second down, third down is a whole different world. Like Danton Land, we'll get there in a second, but you have to be ready for single linebacker pressures, meaning they're going to bring all 4 defensive linemen and then bring a Mike in the A gap or a Will in the C gap to try to catch you off guard. They also are aggressive when they're not blitzing. What I mean by that is their first step is always downhill. You can tell that they're taught to anticipate run and then react to pass or react to play action because of their gap integrity, their gap responsibility in the run game. That's why I think they've been better stopping the run than they have stopping the pass because of their linebackers in the middle of the field. But you'll see it on tape. Even when it's a pass or play action, their first step is downhill. They're reading that guard. They're reading the quarterback go to sell the play action fake, and then they react off of that and try to get back in coverage on the back end. We can take advantage of that, but we have to establish the run first. If we don't get the run game going, these linebackers aren't going to respect that enough to where they're going to crash downhill, and then we can have play action with Lake McCree or Walker Lyons where we go over the linebacker under the safety. So we've got to establish the run game first to make them overcommit, and then we'll have some big plays in the play action passing game. Just keep an eye on that. I expect Lincoln Riley to come out, get the run game going, try to sell it, hit Walker Lyons on a quick over route, hit Lake McCree on one of those seam routes where we have holes in the defense because of the play action. So something to keep an eye on. When it comes to their coverage in the back end, they're not afraid, and they'll mix up coverages, but they're not afraid to play man-to-man and gotta-have-it situations. I would almost expect man-to-man in 3rd and 5, and 3rd and short, 4th and medium, 4th and short, on those situations where it's an obvious passing down and you know the quarterback's going to throw the football. Ash is not afraid to call man-to-man and try to get pressure in the backfield. They'll also do it down in the red zone, down in the goal line as well. I don't know how much they're going to do it this week. If I'm Mekhi Lemon, if I'm Jaden Mayava, even if I'm Jacoby Lane, the tight ends, and you're going to come out and play man-to-man on this gotta-have-it situation, you're supposed to take that as disrespect. As an offense, you're taught, force them into zone. If they're going to play man-to-man, that's them saying, we're not worried about any of you guys. We're going to play man and play one safety deep, and I know our guys can cover. That's going to be a great thing to watch this week. I don't know if they're going to do it because if I'm watching film and I'm seeing what number 6 is doing to everybody else that tries to play man, I'm going to probably play a little more two-man or play man-to-man and cheat the safety over the top. But they are relentless with this look. They are consistent. If it's a gotta-have-it situation, expect man-to-man. They're going to do that. So that's something to keep an eye on this week. This is, when it comes to the secondary, I know they're struggling. They're 104th in passing defense, but they are 2nd in the country in interceptions. So this is a boom or bust type defense.
Yeah.
Something we've seen here at USC a couple years ago. Remember we talked about bend, don't break? We're struggling to stop people, but we kept having takeaways in the back end. We kept forcing fumbles. They have 11 interceptions already this season. Like I mentioned, the 2nd in the country. They take risks when the ball's in the air. They're aggressive when the ball's in the air. Sometimes it doesn't work out for them, though, and they give up big plays. They like to jump a lot of routes when you're throwing, those quick outs, those slants. They're taught, like the linebackers that come downhill, they're taught to react to that and be aggressive in their coverage. But when you have guys like Jacoby Lane, Mekhi Lemon, you can't be as aggressive. So we'll see what they do, but this is a big week for Jaden Maiava to overemphasize decision-making. This is a defense that can create takeaways. They're opportunistic when the ball's in the air. Don't force these throws. If it's not there, check it down, move on. If you're out of the pocket, you're rolling out, you're moving around. They do a good job in scramble drill of guys coming from the backside and covering when you get those over routes or the guys coming back to the ball. So just be cautious of that. We had a very bad interception last week against Michigan. Played great other than that, but that bad turnover down in the red zone, that can't happen this week, especially on the road, because that gets the crowd going. So you've got to be ready for all of that. And then the other thing, I mentioned man. I mentioned the takeaways. When they play zone, and a lot of that too kind of feeds off of the play action, but when they play zone, there are plays to be made in this defense. There are a lot of holes when they're zone dropping. You can tell, again, with Ash being in his first year as a defensive coordinator, they're not quite getting to the right spots. They're leaving some of those second window throws wide open. They're leaving some of those curl routes, those in cuts, those deeper hook routes. They're leaving those guys open, especially if you have time in the pocket. So we have to be able to protect Maiava up front, because if they're playing zone, especially off of play action, there's big plays to be made down the field.
So I know you still have more to say about this defense, but I have many follow-up questions for you here, so I apologize.
No, go for it.
First one, we actually got multiple questions about this, and you mentioned this about making sure that you sell the run. Will said, do you expect to see more design QB runs this weekend since the running back depth has been impacted? And then Chad also said, with Waymo and Eli out, does Coach Riley lean on the pass more or stick to his guns and still run?
Yeah, those are two great questions, and that's something that I anticipate this week. We had this same question a week ago before the Michigan game about, do we need to see Jaden Maiava be more involved in the run game? And my answer was no. I think we're using them the right amount. We have two very good running backs in Eli Sanders and Wayman Jordan, and Maiava was making the right reads in the run game. I don't need you to always run the football to be effective in the run game. Read that defensive end, know when to pull it, know when to give it, know when to kick out an RPO. But now when you lose Eli Sanders, when you lose Wayman Jordan, and I wish them nothing but the best. I hope they can get healthy. I really feel for those guys. But you're going to this game with King Miller as your lead back, and after that, we don't know what the rotation is going to look like. So for me, Jaden Maiava might have to be that RB2 in this game at quarterback, to where you have some quarterback design runs, or you overemphasize this week, hey, even if it's close with the backside defensive end, pull some of these to keep them honest and know that you're a threat on the ground, so they can force, or you can force the defense to have to worry about that instead of just crashing on King Miller all game long. So it'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on, but I do expect, I know those are good questions, I do expect Jaden Maiava, whether it's a quarterback design run or the zone read, to be more involved in the run game this week. And then two more things that I want to add before we move on to personnel grouping. Kind of touched on this briefly, but they are a boom or bust defense. We have to have double moves on the outside this week. Like I said, they jump slant routes, they jump pitches, they jump outs. They have given up multiple out and up touchdowns already this year. Texas A&M, NC State game, go watch it. They've given up big time plays when you give them the out and up or any underneath move. Pump it and then go over the top, because they want to jump those and try to get interceptions. So we have to take advantage of that. They have some young corners on the outside. They've had some guys been dealing with injury. So if we find out in this game where you run a couple slants, who's the guy that's going to be aggressive, pump off of that and try to find some plays over the top. And then the last thing I want to add is be ready for third down. And I sound like a broken record. I say it every single week, but it's so important. Everything we just talked about on base downs, just forget everything for the next couple of minutes, because third down is a game within a game. It's a completely different segment. And when you prepare for a week like this, when you go up against these opponents, that's why you have, Tuesday practice base down. Wednesday, you get your entire day of third down and short yardage for opponents like this. And Chris Ash is very good with the defense that he calls from a schematic standpoint. It's similar to Danton Lynn. It's similar to Wink Martindale, to where you're going to see a bunch of funky looks or exotic looks. He wants to confuse you as a quarterback. He wants to confuse your center and your offensive line. He's going to show some double A gap. He's going to show some overload to the right. Hey, Ricky, send the protection to the right, and then the pressure's coming from the left. Or walk everybody up. One time he'll bring them. The next time he's going to drop them out. He has cover 0, cover 1, zone pressures off of it as well, so he'll mix up multiple different pressures. But one thing they do that is unique and we have to be ready for is they do a lot of delayed blitzes. And what I mean by that is they're going to walk guys up. Say they walk a Mike linebacker up into the A-gap, and then at the snap they're going to drop him out. Oh, it looks like he's dropping. The other guy's pressure. They'll do a fake drop, and then so your linebacker or your running back who's on protection with him, or your center sees, okay, he drops out, I'm no longer responsible. The running back thinks I have the mic, drops out, okay, let me look elsewhere, delay for a second, and then they will pressure. So you have to be locked in, over-confirm that the guy you're blocking, whether it's the offensive line, the running backs, the tight ends, over-confirm that your guy's dropping out, then you can release and get out on your route or get out for your check down. So it's going to be a big week this week. Good thing for us, though. I say it all the time when we face these tough third down opponents. Danton Lynn is one of the best third down coaches in college football with the pressure looks, with the coverages. So Jade Mayava in this offense saw it all spring. They saw it during fall camp. They've seen it in a couple games this year, so they'll be ready to go. But we have to be perfect on third down, especially on the road. That communication is going to be a little bit more tough. Over-communicate, make sure you have a plan, and don't make a bad play worse. They're going to win sometime. That's okay. Just don't compound the problem.
You know what's funny is when you do this now weekly third down segment, I usually think from the perspective of Jaden Mayava, but now putting myself in King Miller's shoes, this has to be overwhelming because this is a big jump in responsibility, right?
No, that's a great point. It's tough because, as a running back, I need you to run the ball well and go score touchdowns and catch out of the backfield and do all these things and be explosive on the ground game. But if you can't block, then you're not going to be on the field because I can't trust that you're going to protect the quarterback. And it's almost more difficult for a running back in pass protection than it is for the offensive line, not from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, because the offensive line knows, all right, I got the 4-down lineman and the will linebacker. As a running back, your responsibility normally is Mike to Sam to everybody else. You got to handle which linebacker you're blocking. You've also got to handle any secondary pressure. It could be the corner from the right, the safety from the right, a backside corner. There is a lot that goes into pass protection when it comes to a running back, and if you're wrong one time, that could be your quarterback getting hurt, or that's taking an unnecessary hit, or that's a sack fumble, or that's a turnover. So that's a very good point. That's something that King Miller is going to have to overemphasize this week in his prep is, okay, worry about the run game, worry about my routes, and things that I can do and stuff to help out in the pass game. But the most important thing this week on the road is all of my responsibility in pass protection. I'm glad you brought that up.
What's interesting, too, is we had Coach Anthony Jones Jr. on the show in preseason, and he actually said that he teaches each play from the perspective of the quarterback. And they're I
love that.
So, I mean, maybe that pays off in a situation like this where now King is thrust into the spotlight and it's not too much of a jump in that sense.
Yeah, and this is big, too, on Jaden Mayava. This week, now that you're the veteran in the room, now you're the veteran quarterback, you've got a bunch of starts under your belt, help him out. And even with Buck, I knew Buck Allen knew everything that he needed. Even Silas Redd when he was in there, I knew these guys knew the protection, but we would get up there and go, all right, Mike is 54. The offensive line's got the 4-down lineman to the backside linebacker. I would look over to Buck, say, hey, you got middle to the strong side linebacker to everyone else. And he would give me a nod like, yeah, I know, Cody. But I would always make sure and overemphasize or over-communicate to my backs. It takes 1 second. Make sure he knows, hey, you got 44. Be ready for that safety. You got 44, everyone else. Hey, the backside corner's cheating up a little bit. Peek over here to the left. Just give them little hints because as a quarterback, you should know what's happening on defense. Help those guys out because they've already got a bunch of stuff going on.
And now you're
especially
on the road.
You're a freshman on the road playing in your first rivalry game. It's tough, but yeah, that can be something that Jaden Mayava can help eliminate some of that confusion and help them out in this game.
Well, let's look at the personnel on defense for Notre Dame. Who should we look for on Saturday?
Yeah, they got a lot of guys on this defense as well, just like they do on offense. This is a talented roster. There's a reason that they were in the national championship game a year ago, and a big part of that was on the defensive side of the ball. The first guy that USC needs to be ready for is in this secondary, and that's safety Aiden Schuler. He is a sophomore, but he is a captain and a leader on this defense. He has 29 tackles, 1 interception, and 1 forced fumble on the year. They got a couple DBs right now that have been in and out of the lineup. One of them is Christian Gray at corner that USC has to be ready for, but the one that Jay Mayava needs to keep his eye on is cornerback Leonard Moore. He's a 6'2", 195-pound sophomore. Talk about a takeaway defense. He leads the team right now with 3 interceptions and a forced fumble. He is a ball hawk at that corner position. When you look at the middle of this defense, the first guy that USC needs to be ready for is one of their leaders on this team, junior linebacker Drake Bowen. He leads the team with 31 tackles and 1 sack. He is always around the ball. If you put the film on, I promise you're going to find Bowen either making the tackle or he's right there by it, and he's one of those linebackers, like I mentioned, that likes to be aggressive, so we got to be ready for him in the run game. Then the other playmaker that they have at the linebacker spot is Kingston Viliamu-Asa. He has 28 tackles, which is 3rd on the team. He also has 1 interception that he had last week against North Carolina State. But my red dot player of the week on defense, a game plan disruptor. And when I say red dot player, for those of you who haven't seen the show before, when you have the clicker in the film room that start, pause, rewind, fast forward, it has a little red laser pointer on it. When you get in the film room and a coach keeps shining that laser pointer on the same guy over and over and over, it's because he's disrupting the game plan. You've got to be ready for him. That is Boubacar Traore. He's a defensive end for Notre Dame. He is the definition of a red dot player. He's only a sophomore, but this kid is legit. I expect him. He's good on Saturdays, but I expect him to be a good player on Sundays as well. He is a game plan disruptor, like I mentioned. He has 24 tackles this year, but he has 5.5 sacks already this season, has 1 forced fumble. It is going to be a huge challenge for Justin Tawanuu, for Tobias Raymond. I don't know if we'll have Elijah Page back, but if he's not, those tackles outside with Raymond and Tawanuu have to be locked in. They have to be disciplined. I expect this is a week that Lincoln Riley will use King Miller. He'll use Lake McCree. He'll use Walker Lyons to chip on Traore before they get out in protection because he's that good as a pass rusher getting after the quarterback.
Well, before I take us over to questions, Cody, on the whole, how are you feeling about how USC matches up against this Notre Dame team?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm optimistic. I feel a lot better after seeing the product on the field last week against Michigan because I know we can handle a physical offensive line. We can handle a physical defensive line. We can stop the run. We can get pressure on the quarterback. It tells me now that Illinois game was an outlier. You can't focus too much on that. But it also tells me that they corrected those mistakes, they learned from it, and they went out and played some good football. So I feel good. Two very similar teams when it comes to personnel. A lot of talent on offense on both sides of the ball. Talented defense that is with a second-year coordinator in Danton Lynn, and then Notre Dame as a first-year coordinator in Ash. The talent is there. It's just about the consistency and getting comfortable in this scheme. So it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. If you love college football, make sure you're tuned into this one. I know USC fans will be, but I can't wait for Saturday. It's going to be awesome.
Once again, you're getting me too hype on a Wednesday. Well, I want to get us over to questions, Cody. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Ralph's. At Ralph's, you get high quality and low prices, so you never have to compromise your budget. Save on thousands of items throughout the store. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Already, I was going to say first question, but we've had many questions.
We've already got a couple out.
Chris said, what would your message be to the team coming off a great win to avoid a setback?
Yeah, my message to this team would be last week was last week. Put that behind you. Yeah, it was a statement win. Yeah, it was a win that this program needed under Lincoln Riley in his era, and a game that we needed to prove that we can go out and handle business and dominate in the trenches like we did. But it wasn't the Super Bowl. It's not the national championship. It was just another week. And you dominated in that game. Great. Learn from the mistakes and use those positives going forward and build off of that. But this is another nameless, faceless opponent. It's the next week, 1-0 every single week. I know there's going to be some things going on with travel and time change and all of that, and there's some other factors in this game, but control what you can control, handle business, go into South Bend, dominate in this football game, play Trojan football like we know this team can, get the shillelagh, hop on the plane, and come back to L.A.
It's coach speak. I love it.
Coach speak.
He asked for your message to the team. So
that's my message right there.
You answered the bell.
Yeah.
Now, if we weren't so close to questions when you were saying this, I would have just brought these questions up. But it's similar, so I was like, let's just wait till questions.
Okay.
So I'm going to combine them too as well. Cameron said, true or false, we have seen the ceiling of this defense against Michigan. And Louis said, is this last performance more indicative of this team's level at this time? It felt way different.
Yeah, I wouldn't say ceiling. I think there's still more out there. I think when you go back and watch the tape, especially in the secondary, I think we can get more out of our corners. I think we can get more out of the guys in the back end. Bishop Fitzgerald had a couple big interceptions in this game. That was great to see. But I think as a unit, with those four, they can play a little bit better, especially in some of these man-to-man situations and some of those tackling situations as well. Front seven, we're close. We're getting close to that ceiling. You're always going to keep getting better, though. You never can be satisfied. You're never really going to be perfect, so there's always room for improvement. But I think it more so showed them how high that ceiling can be. They know now, okay, we did it early on in the season against some lesser opponents. We did it, against some of the teams in the Big Ten. And no disrespect to Michigan State or Purdue, but teams that aren't competing for a conference championship year in and year out. But now we saw that we can do it against Michigan and that the Illinois game was just an off day. This is what the standard is. Now there's a belief, and I promise you that is so important as a quarterback or anyone on the team, as a unit, as a group, as an individual. When you're struggling, sometimes it's tough to get out of that funk and you're like, can I really do this? But then you have that one game to where you go, all right, the light switch turned on. I know I can do this. I know what we're capable of against a good opponent, and that can carry you a long way, and that's something that you can build off of. So I expect this defense and Danton Lynn and the coaches as well to go back, watch that film, and all right, this is the standard now, but let's keep getting better off of that.
SoCal Manny said, USC ran a lot of successful tunnel screens against Michigan. Notre Dame will be ready for those calls. Will Coach Riley call a similar game plan or change things up?
Tunnel and go. Let's get, hey, that's what you set them up. Let's run some tunnel screens. Let's, and stick to your offense. That's something we do well. That was a beautiful play call, too, on that tunnel screen to Lake McCree. Unfortunately, ended in a fumble. but that was an awesome play. You spread them out wide. You get the linebackers to widen out, bring it back underneath to a tight end tunnel screen too. You don't see that a whole lot, so I love that. Let's run some things off of it this week. Let's maybe pump a tunnel screen and throw it out wide. Let's fake a couple of those. We did a lot of running back motions in this game as well, so I expect him to use King Miller, putting him out and empty, bringing him back in the backfield, get some man or zone tells, show things that you did on film a week ago, but now have multiple plays off of that. And that's what Lincoln Riley is so good at, to where a defense will see the same play 4 or 5 times, but instead of a tunnel screen this time, now I'm going to fake the tunnel screen and hand it off, or I'm going to fake it and run a go route over the top, or do so many different things off of that. So I'm excited to see what he comes up with, but the same film that all the fans watch and that you see at home, Chris Ash and that defense has watched as well. So they're planning for it. So now you can build off of that game plan.
2 more questions, Cody, before we wrap it up. Amy said, looks like rain on Saturday. How much do you think that will impact the Trojans?
Amy, you are asking a former quarterback, so I'm not a big fan of these cold weather games, these rain games, these wind games, all of that. I played in some snow a couple times too in Colorado.
Wow. When
we played against the Buffaloes. So, and in the NFL, you got to play in all different types of elements, but you can prepare for those to an extent throughout the week before you actually go play in that type of weather. And what I mean by that is when you're playing in a rain game as a quarterback, as a running back, as an offense, we do what we call wet ball drills, meaning that every period, routes on air, team 7-on-7, 1-on-1s, the coaches will come over, and I hated it because it's so frustrating, but it does help. They'll come over with a water bottle and just spray the football. Or we would have a bucket, and before every route, we would dump it in the bucket, hand it to the quarterback real quick, and then run the play. Or dump it in the bucket, give it to the center, call the play. And you would go right away so you could, mimic
adjust
what it's going to be like to have a wet ball when it's raining in the game. Now, that's to an extreme. When you have those rain games, they do a good job of getting a bunch of footballs in and out. The refs are taught to cover it with a towel right before the center walks up. So you'll get somewhat of a dry ball, but it's good to overdo it in practice so that you're ready for the game, or over-prepare so when it happens on Saturday. But, yeah, I'm not a fan of the cold weather. I'm not a fan of the rain. The thing I hated the most, though, was the wind. So I can handle rain. I can handle snow. I can handle the cold. Once it got really windy, that is not a quarterback's friend. That gets a little more tough. But, yeah, it's going to be a huge point of emphasis this week from a quarterback and a running back and even a receiver standpoint of ball security.
Okay, our final question comes from our former co-producer, Crash, who said, what does the Notre Dame rivalry mean to you, Cody?
It means a lot. It does. I mean, I always say the cliche answer, nameless, faceless opponent, but this one means a little more. You always circle the Fighting Irish game, and you always circle the UCLA Bruin game. And as a Trojan, how much it means to the fans as well, because they have bragging rights, because they have, for a whole year, the shillelagh, the victory bell, it has to mean something. You have to take pride in wearing the cardinal and gold. You have to take pride in the tradition and the standard that's been set here at USC because of all the games between the Fighting Irish, between the Bruins that have happened before you, and how much those have meant to the former players. It has to mean the same to you, and it's tough to do that in today's era of college football with NIL, with transfer portal, with guys in and out. So I expect the coaching staff and the leaders on this football team to make sure those guys understand how important it is to the Trojan family, because that's who you're playing for. You're playing for the SC logo on your jersey. You're playing for your coaches, your teammates, but more importantly, you're playing for every single Trojan that came before you and all the Trojan family watching around the world. So I'm excited for it. You can tell I'm fired up. I had one of my biggest games ever in college against Notre Dame at home, so that was something that I always look back on in this day as one of my favorite games ever, college, NFL, high school. But hopefully the Trojans can go out this week and take care of business. Like I said, bring the shillelagh home where it belongs and make this a memorable one.
Alrighty, Cody. I mean, that sounded like a wrap-up. Do you want me to
It's a wrap-up. Hey, shout out Crash. Shout out Emily.
Yeah,
it's her birthday. We've got all the former producers, the current producer. Everyone's here today. Fight on Keely. Fight on you guys. Love you guys. Hopefully we see you Sunday with a great recap episode. Let's go take care of business. If you're going to the game, be loud, be supportive. Talk a little trash. Be careful. Those Notre Dame fans don't like us too much, and I've had some experience with that. But either way, let's get ready to go on this one.
Alrighty, you heard the man excited for Saturday's matchup. That's going to wrap it up for our preview episode. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.